I just want to talk very briefly about the transportation system because I know it's of concern. There's several of us here who studied transportation systems over the years on Roosevelt Island. I see Mr. Pallavi here. He's helped in the past also.
Can you speak up, Mr.
I'm sorry. The transportation system here has its limitations right now, and I'm sending out a report on this, and I know it well. What we have with the subway now is there's some features that are better about it, but overall they add about 15 to 40 minutes in extra commute time. I've looked at all the possibilities. I have experience in train control. We can't really increase the capacity. And I think the problem overall that residents need to understand is that you're all not using the subway, and so there's a lot of capacity in there. So trying to get more subway is just something that's going to fall on deaf ears, with the MTA. And in terms of what can happen here, I would say don't have RIOC add more buses, all over the place. Like right now, they have a good shuttle service on the weekend, but those don't really add a lot of volume. And so continue doing things the way you are with respect to the tram. You can run that continuously. There's 1,000 people an hour. You can move on that, so keep on doing that. I understand it's an issue with line preference. That's a legal issue, which you guys, have more experience than me on that. But I just want to say to the residents, as a community, we've been through this in 1980, 81, when the cable fell and we had all of the craziness back then. We've had the tram rebuilt in 2009 and 10, and several RIOC board members, who were present for that. And also in 1998, we had an accident with the train that, the crane that hit the tram and it was down for a while. So in summary, I would say the situation we have right now is the best within the train system. I don't see us adding more capacity through the tram, a little bit of capacity on the Q94 bus, not much on the red bus, and the ferry, and not much on the ferry. I think we sort of have to figure out how to get used to that and figure out what we can do to be supportive, because there's obviously people that it disrupts, but I'm just saying, I've looked at all the insides of this, and there's not much room to significantly change it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mitchell Noble? Mitchell Noble? Okay. Paul Frickler?
Thank you. I have two suggestions or requests to help us with this F-train rehab. They're very small suggestions. I think they're very big outsized impacts. The first one is if we could start the tram at peak service at 2 p.m, not 3 p.m, that would help so many kids who are coming back to the island. Just have 1 extra hour, catch a lot of people and take a lot of congestion out of the system. So that's the first request, the peak time to start at 2 p.m. The second thing is I think we need much more active management and help of people at the tram itself. We've seen some of the PSD people get involved a little bit, and some of the tram operators are shouting out to help people sit down. But I think we need much more active help, and the best way I can describe that is just talk about the experience I've seen with some people with mobility issues and some elderly people. If there's a crush in there, they need actual people, PSD people inside the tram waiting area, past the turnstiles, to help them get a seat on the bench, and then to help them get on the actual tram. I've seen people who had to miss the first tram because they couldn't move around and there was a stampede to get on the tram. Same thing for on the tram. It's great when the tram operators shout out, make room for people, or those seats reserved, but frankly, it doesn't go in the ears of most people because they're busy having a good time being on the tram, being tourists. We need the tram operators to actually escort or help people. I've seen regular residents help people get onto a seat, ask somebody to stand up and leave. I've done that myself. It'd be much better for us all if PSD could get more involved in helping marshal people through and look out for those more vulnerable, and also on the tram itself. Those are my two suggestions. Thank you.
I just want a little feedback on that. I know that Chief Kevin is doing a lot to
I'm sorry,
And it has been being improved quite dramatically over the last few weeks, and I'm sure there'll be more iterations of improvement, which we're listening to your feedback in general. It's kind of complicated. One of the major issues that we have is that we have three different modes of transportation, right? We have the tram, we have the subway, we have the ferry, and we have buses. But the majority of the population, or a lot of the population, have been going to the tram, which is really flooding the tram. And we really need to figure out ways how to distribute the crowds to go to all the different transportation modes that we have, because we have a lot of means of transportation, we're just not using all of them in an effective way, which I'm hoping that we can together work on improving that. And then regarding, I think the second point that you mentioned was the peak service from 2 p.m. I think you sent a few emails on that. I know our elected officials have as well. I've been trying to reach out to Mary, but I don't see her anywhere here, because I think that she's responsible for that, but I'm hoping.
If I may, this is the public comment area time, and this is, only time for members of the public to comment.
Thanks.
So I'm gonna go on to the next, person. Mr. Matt Walden.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Matt Walden. While we all understand this track work with the MTA on the F train does need to get done, there are some things that RIOC could do to help with the situation. Many residents have to now take multiple modes of transportation to get to work. This requires multiple transfers. I'll give you an example. My commute is to Bryant Park to get to work every day. I boarded F shuttle, the 8:42 F shuttle, got to 63rd and Lexington at 8:44. Waited 6 minutes for a downtown Q train across the platform at 8:50. Completely packed, jam-packed, could not get onto the Q train. There was no way anyone could get into that train. It was fully max capacity. The next Q train was 12 minutes away. I waited on the hot platform, no ventilation, no seating. There were people with mobility issues transferred from the F train on the platform, waiting for the next train. And that next train I was able to get in, but still completely packed. And this was during rush hour, Tuesday morning, 8, 9 a.m. And it was just very, very hard. So that's just one example. Coming back, I took the 7 train to Queens Plaza. Waiting for a Q102 bus, waited over 30-40 minutes for a bus just to get on the bus, and it kept saying 5 minutes, 5 minutes, 5 minutes, and then it ended up taking like 20-25 minutes to get through like 5 blocks of traffic in the Queensboro area. So it just adds a lot of transfers. So one thing that could be helpful is having a reliable red bus service on the island. That means knowing when the red bus is going to come, whether you're getting back to Roosevelt Island or trying to leave, so you can catch your shuttle train, ferry, whatever it is. You know you can get onto the bus, you know when it's coming. A couple days ago, I noticed there were about 15 people in front of the church at Manhattan Park stop during rush hour morning, and there were no red buses coming. So if there's some way to have an app integrated so we know a bus is coming. There's also no red bus timetable, so no one really knows. We know it's running every 7 minutes or 15 minutes, but we don't really know exactly what time those are coming to each of the stops, whether you're coming to the island or leaving the island. And last comment is, on the weekend, I noticed that there is, usually during the week, there's 1 red bus for every tram that arrives to the island. So there's a red bus waiting once the tram arrives. On the weekend, there's only one single, for every other tram coming in, there's a red bus. So there isn't a red bus for every single tram. So that increases having a lot of people on the red bus, filling it to capacity. So if there's any way to just provide more efficient red bus service on the island.
Thank you.
Just a small note is that we don't have that many
Excuse me.
drivers, so it's really
Mr.
impossible
Fala?
to really increase the amount of red bus service.
Mr.
But
Fala.
we're doing the best that we can.
I'm gonna go on to the next person, Samina Lift, please.
So on top of that is that sometimes we divert the red bus to do other stuff than the things that we used to do prior to the changes, which are causing more disruptions. We're working with Gretchen and the team to try to figure out better solutions, but overall we're doing the best.
Thank you.
Ms. Samina Lift, please. I'm sorry, you have 3 minutes.
Sure. My main concern really is on the F shuttle times and keeping the schedule. I know it seems very simple, but it's not currently happening. Trains are leaving anywhere between 1 and 3 minutes early, and since they're just going to the next stop and turning around, there really is no reason for that. So I want to figure out how we can really set the schedule and keep the schedule. My second comment, which I didn't type in, but I think I can speak to it, is on providing some sort of accurate schedule for the Red Bus in the app form. I think there's lots of communication around that the Octagon owns it, that this owns it. It doesn't matter. Let's just get a product that works out there for everyone to use. Whether, I don't care how it's done, but let's just get it out there.
Regarding the Octagon, I know there's a lot of conversation.
All right, Ms. Margie Smith is the next speaker.
The main thing is that right now the Octagon bus goes to the.
Ms. Margie Smith is the next speaker, unless you would like to
It's
portion
coordinated
time.
to this fair.
Just a map that shows it. Every other bus does it. You should be able to do it.
Why don't you let them speak? Why are you stopping you from speaking?
Public comment. The board does not usually respond.
But they can if they so wish.
Well, at every. Ms. Margie Smith, you may have 3 minutes.
All right, well, I'll give Ben my first minute if you want to finish up.
Appreciate it. No, I think more or less.
Okay. Again, on the transportation, we're all New Yorkers. Many of us were here before the subway, some before the tram. We understand transportation problems. The difference is, back then, we always had a town meeting. We always got everybody together. We always talked about what are the options, what are the regular commuters going to face. We didn't do that here. Instead, we published a legal document that I want to address. The actual wording, we talked about priority boarding for people on the tram. And the law that was cited says, no common carrier shall give any undue or unreasonable preference or advantage to any person. We don't feel it's unreasonable to give preference to the residents during this time.
Yeah.
And everybody knows laws are subject to interpretation. So I asked a judge friend of mine about that and said, well, the only way you find out is if you end up in court. We're not gonna end up in court. We don't wanna end up in court, let's put it that way. What's the worst that can happen if you give us preference? A tourist gets mad and sues us, and so what? It'll take 6 months for it to get to court, in which case it wasn't a frivolous lawsuit, and the problem will be over. So we have nothing to lose by giving people priority boarding. The second thing was very interesting because it says no greater or lesser charge, no common carrier shall directly or indirectly charge greater or less compensation for any service rendered in the transportation of passengers. It seems to me RIOC has been violating that law now for years. We not only pay for the same fare as everybody else through our Metro card and the subsidy that the MTA gives through our taxes, then you double dip and charge us again through our ground rent. So we think we're getting charged more and we'd like it to stop. I wanted to bring this up before because now we're hitting my 2 pet peeves. As a former board member, many of you who were here will remember my 1 pet peeve was that we never met in the summer. For some reason we took the summer off. The summer is when things happen on this island. There was no place to go. So I got online to look at where the committees are. I figured maybe I'll find a committee and talk to them even though they're not meeting. There are no committees. We've got like 4 new board members here who've just wasted 2.5 months by not being on any kind of committee to do anything, which brings me to my second pet peeve, which was having executive sessions before the meeting or during so that the residents have to then sit and wait. I would ask you to change the agenda and move the executive session to the end of this because I can't imagine you're going to be talking about committee assignments in an executive session since there'd be no need to. So. That's it.
Second that request.